So I really do believe in looking at roles that best suit your own background and where you can have, and if it's not directly, be able to explain in your resume itself.
Thank you, Brian, for your time today. Really appreciate it. Would you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Bryant, and I'm currently working at Google, and I work on the Google Data Center team on a sub team called Energy and Location Strategy. I'm the global PMO lead, and so I lead all of the offsite infrastructure projects for all of our data centers around the world.
Awesome. Um, so here on LinkedIn, it says you are a senior global PMO lead, and that's
Mhm.
what you just mentioned. Can you tell me what PMO stands for?
Yeah, and in the traditional sense, it can stand for a couple of things: project management organization, project management office, program management office, or even portfolio. In our case, it's the a program management organization, and so we really define how projects are delivered in
Mm,
our particular organization.
gotcha. Okay. I know it's been a while since you joined Google
Mhm.
here on LinkedIn. It says over 5 years, but would you be able to tell me what was your first reaction when you first got that job offer from Google?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I remember exactly where I was and who I was with. I had finished the round of interviews. It was a bit of a gauntlet. It was 5 or 6 interviews on one day in Mountain View, and I kept hearing that things were positive, things were positive, and finally I got the call from a 650 number in Mountain View area code, and was in Las Vegas on vacation with my family and my best
Okay.
friend since I've known since kindergarten. We were at some coffee shop, and I got the phone call, and I said, "This might be it, guys." So I ran out to the parking lot of this random coffee shop in Las Vegas, and it was a recruiter, and she says, "I'm so happy to tell you that we're extending you an offer." And I said, I'm trying to contain my composure, and I said, "Oh, great, great! I would love to hear more about that." And she told me all the details. And I said, "Thank you. Can I have a couple days to think about it with my friends and family?" And she said, "Absolutely. Congratulations." Well, it was a Friday too. And I ran back inside and I just couldn't wait to tell my family. And I was so excited. So I do remember that vividly, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one of those good times, with good memories that you kind of celebrate with your friends and family. So
Yeah.
that's good. So you mentioned that you had round of interviews and Mountain View and all that, but would you be able to tell me a little bit about your process of getting into the company? Like, did you have a referral, or did you like what was the interview process look like? How many rounds were there? And also
Yeah.
maybe how long it actually took you to starting from the apply and then till getting that actual offer or the phone call.
Sure. Maybe I'll start somewhere with, and hopefully give folks some encouragement that are looking to get into Google. I remember applying since my undergrad days all the way until I got this job opportunity, and got rejected many many times, and just knew that Google was a really big company with a lot of talented folks, and I figured be persistent, and one day maybe I'll be right timing with the right role. And um, I actually found out that one of my old colleagues from my past job at Edison had gotten a role there. And I had talked to him about his experience, and he told me, he's like, "Hey, if you see anything that might be a great fit, happy to give you a referral." And I looked on their website and found a few roles, and he did give me a referral. And that's when I started getting phone calls to proceed with the process. Now, the my particular process, which maybe it's fairly similar even to this day, but it started with like an interview, kind of like a phone screen, kind of get to know you with the recruiter, where the recruiter kind of gets to know your background, explains to you what the process was. I personally had two phone interviews, proper phone interviews, because back then, Zoom wasn't that big, or like GVCs or Google Video Conferencing wasn't that big back then.
Yep.
And then after I got through that, they said, "Okay, great. We'd love to bring you up to Mountain View for a day full of interviews." And
Mhm.
if I remember, we started at 8:30 or 9, and even had like a lunch chat, and it went through until 3 or 4. And that day was grueling. I think I interviewed with 4 or 5 folks that day, Um, and and the interview process was, I was applying for a program manager position. Um, so fairly generic in that sense. And so there's a lot of hypothetical
Mhm.
questions, behavioral type questions peppered in throughout the whole day. A few questions about leadership and googliness, which is we're kind of known for. And then of course, then they kind of went through the hiring committee, and then I got an offer. So end to end, I would say the whole process took me, and they did disclose to me that they were in a rush to like find somebody. So it was a high priority hire. It was about 6 to 7 weeks, if I recall, which is
Oh,
very,
okay.
very fast. And I know we try to do that, but I think in my case, it was a bit more of an exception to get that quickly.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, if like I heard a few friends tell me about the whole process, and I can definitely say that 6 7 weeks is pretty
Pretty
quick.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about what you do. So you're senior global PMO lead in Google, and I was kind of wondering like what you do and like what your day-to-day looks like and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's I honestly, and I'm not just saying this for this video, but like I honestly think I have one of the best jobs in the world. Um, and so a little more context, our team, the ELS team, we're the ones that go out and acquire land for our data centers around the world. And so when we acquire that land, we're also responsible for developing the infrastructure, and that in
Oh,
this case means like water, power, sewer,
oh wow.
roads, and bringing it all to the fence line. We have a separate team that does the vertical data center construction, but that's a big part of what we do. And so my team is the team that helps deliver those projects around the world. So a few examples of different types of projects is in Europe, we're doing a road relocation. So we bought a parcel of land that happens to be cut or bifurcated with a road. And so we need
Wow.
to move that road out of the way so we can have one contiguous parcel. Not a sexy project, but definitely something. I
Yeah.
love construction. I love construction management. So we're designing it. We're going to move all the utilities and build this new road around there to get it ready for development. And so we're doing a lot of that. And we're also standing up a project controls organization. Project controls is exactly what it sounds like. It's managing the cost, scope, schedule of a budget and the risk and so putting in the tools and methodologies in place so that we can proactively manage projects and foresee risks before they actually happen, have mitigation plans in place, and really run these projects consistently and efficiently. So that's typically what I do on a day-to-day basis.
That's so cool. I mean, I I'd known you for a while, but I don't think I really understood what you do
Yeah,
until this day. That's really cool. So that does that mean that you do a lot of business traveling, like all around the world and stuff?
yeah. Yeah, again, one of the nice perks is that this is a global role, and we are a global kind of function within our team. So I just got back from London. I'm planning a trip to over in Asia and maybe back to the Europe. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to travel to all of our data centers, both ones that are public and ones that we're working on around the world. And I've been able to see places that I wouldn't have otherwise dreamt of seeing in my lifetime. So, yeah, definitely a lot of travel.
I don't know how to put this, but like when we think about a typical program management role in a tech company, we don't really associate to, let's say, like building out infrastructures and stuff like that. Yeah, was there any learning curve when you first got into this role? Obviously it's not a traditional or
Yeah,
what normal people would think about as a program management role in a tech company.
yeah, there certainly was, and I think that the learning curve for me was figuring out how to leverage my past experience into this role. So, data center development, I would say, at the hyperscale level, there's only so many players in the space, right? And so, I think once learning a little bit more about the industry, and then being able to leverage that background experience. So, while I didn't have data center development directly experience, I had a lot of utility development of a background from my prior job. So being able to leverage that to this role really helped ease that learning curve. But like with anything else, learning about a team's processes, the internal tools they use, the kind of the who's who in the zoo of, building relationships and creating, and also building your own brand and your
Mhm.
rapport with cross-functional stakeholders. That takes a lot of time, and building up that trust. It takes a lot of time and effort as well. So those are probably the biggest challenge in ramping up into this space. But once I did, it was a lot easier because I understood how construction management works, how to develop, how to work with, internal and external stakeholders, and to drive projects to completion. So
You know what? One of the questions that I wanted to ask was like, who do you work closely with?
mhm.
Like, I would assume that you mentioned, several times now about construction companies or,
Yeah.
workers out. So like, I kind of wondering, like, is it more so of the internal stakeholders? And if
Mhm.
so, like, who are they? And then is it the external stakeholders? And like, if so, like, who are they?
Yeah, it's great because it's a bit of both. Internally, we have obviously very very sharp engineers, data center engineers. We have civil engineers that we work with, and designers for our data centers, and coordinating with them about, how and where we're going to bring in our utilities, so that when the data center construction team's ready to go, we're talking like we're bringing the pipes in at the right location, and the access roads make sense for our, thinking ahead. So we do a lot of that coordination. Other teams that we coordinate with are supply planning. So they're the folks that look at what kind of supply options we have, where's the demand coming from Google Cloud or internal customers, and then kind of planning. Okay, so which sites are we going to prioritize? In which geographical area? So there's a lot of algorithms and a lot of very smart people that are figuring that out, and so we work together with them to kind of prioritize our work. Externally, depending on the jurisdiction, we can be working with small towns and small cities around the world, and their city councils and their mayors, delivering this kind of work, getting permits, easements, negotiating things. That's all kind of those are the kind of stakeholders that we deal with. More locally in the States, it is very much, local permitting offices, environmental regulators, all those kind of things we're constantly working with, because we're doing a lot of earth movements, and a lot of
Yeah.
construction that has potential impacts that we need to make sure that we've checked all the boxes and we're getting the right permits and following all the rules. So it's great. It's a big
Yeah.
cross-functional team.
Yeah. 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 I honestly can't imagine how, you would all kind of work with, the regulatory offices and then all that stuff. So it's like super interesting. It's already my last question.
Yeah.
Advice for those who want to join Google as a program manager or program management function.
Yeah. So I really do believe in looking at roles that best suit your own background, and where you can have, and if it's not directly, be able to explain in your resume itself the parallels, right? So even if, like for me, I worked a lot in operations, logistics, at a startup right before I came to Google, and so I joined Google's shopping team at that time, my first year at Google, before, which was kind of a huge pivot away from what I'm doing today, but it's something I wanted to explore in my own career. So what I did was I said, hey, I'm not directly in e-commerce, logistics, operations, but I have a lot of operations working in warehouse and operations planning and customer relations, and I was able to parallel that well to what I did prior, and so I think that really helped kind of get the recruiters' attention. And then I would say be patient. A lot of times, you don't know where you're applying, right? So if a job's been posted for a couple of weeks, they could be nearing, they already have 200, 300 applicants. And so while you may be very qualified, they've, taken the first swath of very qualified, highly qualified candidates and moved them along in the process. And so it just might be a timing thing. Doesn't mean that you're not qualified. Doesn't mean that you're not good enough, or whatever. And I can say that because that's how I felt originally. So hopefully, if someone's watching and say, "Hey, I want to be at Google. I want to be a program manager," I would encourage you to continue applying. Tailor your resume. That's really important. I know sometimes there's a tendency, or inclination to just get a generic resume and just apply to a bunch of places. Really take that time to tailor your experience to what the job description is. The better you can pair that up, the higher your chances are of getting that, that first phone call to start your process.
Awesome. I can't agree more with tailoring your resume to the role, especially the ones that you care about. Yeah,
Yeah,
Brian, that was all for today. Thank you so much for your time.
absolutely. No, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit more about my background. I'm always happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you.